proof to sue the government because you have to have such a higher level of proof to sue the federal government. It's not like suing an individual or a corporation or anything. It has to be a much bigger hurdle that you have to reach.
Mm-hmm.
But law firms were ready to sue because of the evidences that we're talking about.
Well, and folks, we have just scratched the surface. As Charles mentioned, the book Final Report is over 500 pages long, and it is not a book in that it is not a narrative. It is just page after page after page of investigative report, affidavits, and evidence that has been gathered. We have just scratched the surface tonight. Let me remind you, you can get that book by going to Charles Key's website. That's charleskey.com, K-E-Y, charleskey.com, and order that book, Final Report. And you can also learn more by going to YouTube and watching the film, A Noble Lie. Charles is featured in that film, as well as dozens of others that have been involved. In fact, people that I know, people that I've met through Charles and otherwise, and that I know these people to be good and honorable people. And so I would encourage you to do that and to act accordingly in terms of what goes on around you. Charles, I want to thank you for tonight. I'm sorry we had so much trouble last week, but it was sure worth the wait to have you back tonight. I want to thank you so much, and we will have you back. Particularly, get in touch with us if anything changes. If there's new evidence that comes out or something else that happens in regards to this case, please let us know because we'd like to have you back.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed being here, and I appreciate you having me on and caring enough about the truth, not just on this subject, but so many things, to do this radio program. It's real important. Well,
that's what we think, too. We're very passionate about doing it. And fortunately, as we said at the beginning of the show, at the very beginning of the show, there are so many ways you can hear this show now, not just live when we're doing it here on WNLM, but through Spreaker and through iTunes Radio or TuneIn Radio and other things that are coming on the near horizon, SoundCloud and et cetera, iTunes and whatnot, that you're going to be able to listen to this show beyond our air date. And so we want to thank you again for coming and being with us, Charles, and you're welcome to come back anytime you like.
I appreciate it very much, Steve. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Charles.
All right. Well, we've got about 10 more minutes, and as Charles leaves us, I'm flabbergasted. Lisa, we could have had him stay for another 3 hours.
Oh, man, easily, and filled every minute of it with more and more. It's just absolutely astounding, the information that he has amassed, and not just stories, but actual factual information that he has been able to put together that he can back up.
Not only that, but he did this in the face of strong opposition.
Yes, absolutely.
To the point that it cost him his seat in the legislature, and he kept forging ahead and was reelected a few years later back into the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
It took a personal toll on him, and he stood strong and firm.
And that's exactly the kind of people we need representing us in our state legislatures and in Congress.
That's
people
right.
Who are willing to take that kind of hit and yet still forge ahead.
There's no question. This kind of show always, it just almost scares me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I worry about, if they could do this 20 years ago, surely they've perfected their skills now.
Well, and I don't believe that the Clintons were anywhere as adept at transparency or lack of transparency as the current administration is.
Well, that's right. But interestingly enough, we have a Clinton running for president now, and is known for kind of covering things up, and not kind of covering things up. I mean, she deletes emails and keeps all of her emails at home on a private server,
Yes.
and in clear violation of the law, and yet doesn't seem to ever be held accountable for things like that.
Right, because it's old news, it's old news. They've already dealt with that.
Yeah. When in fact they never deal with it. I'm going to be interested to see if this freedom of information.
Are we back on?
We are.
Okay.
Oh, good. Phew.
I frankly think that if the evidence is ever found, and I don't think it'll ever be found, I think frankly that the videotapes that he's asking for in terms of the Freedom of Information Act they'll probably come back later and say, well, it's been misplaced, or we can't find it, or it's lost, or it was taped over, or whatever.
Right.
I don't think it's ever going to be.
They'll never see the light of day, and I think that's such a shame for that poor man's family. He deserves to be completely have his good name restored.
Yes, there's no. And by the way, there were other people like that mysteriously passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Sergeant Terrence Yakey of the Oklahoma City Police Department was just a block or so away from the bombing, and when it took place, he actually had somebody pulled over and was writing a ticket, and let them go and rushed down to the building and pulled people out of the rubble, and started putting together evidence that he was finding that was contradicting what the line was.
Mm-hmm.
And mysteriously, about 2 years later, he was found dead in a field, and they said that he had committed suicide.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, here was the case with that. Here's how he committed suicide. His wrists were cut. The inside of both of his elbows were cut. He had handcuff bruises on his wrist, ligature marks around his neck. His jugular veins were cut. He had been beaten, and he had been shot. He had been shot from his upper right temple, and the line of the bullet went from his upper right temple to his lower left cheek with no powder burns.
Oh, really?
Yes, and his keys were found locked in his car about a half a mile away from where he was found in the middle of nowhere.
Well, that sounds like a clear-cut case of suicide to me.
His keys were found locked in the console of his car, and there was a bloody knife in the glove box.
Yes, obviously that's exactly what it was.
So let me make sure I understand this. He cut his own wrist. He cut the inside of his elbows. He cuffed himself and then uncuffed himself. He choked himself. He cut his jugular vein. He beat himself up, and then he shot himself somehow, doing it where
with no powder burns.
With no powder burns, and it looks as if someone were standing over him when they shot him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he locked his keys in the car, locked the bloody knife, and walked half a mile away and died.
Mm-mm-mm.
And that was ruled a suicide. And well, listen, we've talked enough about this. As is our custom at the end of our show, we try to come out with some good news, and we sure need some tonight. What have you got for us, Lisa?
We have some great news. A bag boy at North Carolina grocery store was just minding his own business when he looked outside and immediately took off on foot. Customers and his fellow employees were completely caught off guard by his sudden reaction and ran to the windows to see what the urgency was about. That's when they witnessed a scene they couldn't believe. July 18th was a regular day on the job at Ingalls Market for Aaron Sanders, but it was about to end differently. After what this young man did in an instant, as a matter of instinct taught to him by his mother, he earned a standing ovation by store patrons and employees who were floored by his simple act of kindness. It had begun to rain while an elderly woman was picking up some essentials inside the store. By the time she was ready to walk to her car across the parking lot, the rain had picked up to a drenching downpour. Despite the adverse conditions, the little old woman declined help out to her car and began making her way outside. That didn't sit well with Sanders, who told her, "I'd prefer if I helped you out." With that, she couldn't deny the sweet gesture. She put her arm around his waist, he grabbed an umbrella, and side by side the two went into her car. Sanders shielded the woman from getting wet at the cost of him not staying dry, and he also let her hold on to him the whole way. When he helped her into the car, the umbrella flipped inside out, flinging a pool of water in the Good Samaritan's face, soaking him beyond how wet he already was. Even still, he said goodbye to his new friend, and with a smile, he ran back to work. The sight touched everyone who watched from inside the store, including Sanders' co-worker, Violet Vieira, who snapped a photo and shared it on Facebook, where it garnered a lot of attention. "I thought it was so sweet that he would do this for her, knowing he was going to get drenched." Vieira wrote alongside her picture of the touching moment. As soon as he walked through the doors, everyone began clapping and thanking him for his thoughtfulness. Sanders says he's surprised by all the recognition for it, both locally and online. He says he doesn't deserve the credit, and it should go to his mother, who raised him well. She was always an example to him because of her own selflessness. "She always been there for me and taking care of me," Sanders explained. "She always made sure that I was fed, even if she didn't eat that night, so my respect goes to her." Remaining humble and gracious, Sanders said he was just doing his job, adding, "It's what I like to do. I like helping people whenever they need help. I'd just do it all over again." Yes. Just a simple act of kindness. That's exactly how I would want someone to treat my grandmother or my mother or me. What a wonderful young man, and how special that he credited his mother for his upbringing. Very sweet. He's going to go a long way.
That's right. And Aaron, thank you for your good example. Well, folks, that's our show for tonight. We encourage you to do just like Aaron did and to be on the lookout for things that you can do to help others. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your life tonight. Come back and be with us next Saturday night here on the Deloach Approach. We are sure glad you were here. Good night.
Good night.